Miss Arias, what did you get for your integral?
-2 cosine x.
How many of you have -2 cosine x? Raise your hand. What did she forget anything?
Yes, the constant.
Okay. How many of you have -2 cosine x plus c? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me double check what I think the answer is here. 4 of you get it correct. This is the right answer. Okay.
Good job, Elias. Yeah, I challenged you.
Okay. So let's talk about, since a lot of you were confused on this, let's see. What's the derivative, off to the side, let's scoot this over just a little bit. What's the derivative of sine? Derivative sine of x is cosine of x. What's the derivative of cosine of x? Negative sine of x, right? So if I'm taking the integral of sine of x, that means I need to take and find the derivative of something that's going to be the sine. Well, the derivative of cosine gives me negative sine. Well, I need it to be a positive sine. So what if I were to take the negative out and take it through? The derivative of cosine would be negative sine. The derivative of negative cosine would be a negative sign, or otherwise known as a positive sign. Does that make sense to you? If I have the derivative of cosine is negative sine, then the derivative of negative cosine of x would be a negative sine of x, otherwise known as a positive sine of x. Okay? Is this a product? No. Is there a power or a chain rule here? No. This is the derivative of cosine is negative sine, but that negative here would make it a positive 2 sine of x. Questions? What questions? What don't you understand about this one? Because only 4 of you got it right. Anthony.
I just didn't understand why you didn't do anything with the 2.
The 2 is a constant. The 2 is like 2x. You don't need to do anything with it. You can take the integral of just this piece and then multiply it by 2, just like it was with derivatives. With derivatives, we learned this. C times f of x, if I'm taking the derivative, if I'm taking this of this, then that's equal to c times d dx of f of x. Do you remember that rule? You can take the constant out through the derivative. And since that rule applies to derivatives, it also applies to integrals. I can actually take this 2 out through that and do 2 times the integral of sine of x. You don't need to do anything with it because it's not like it's a variable times a variable. It's a constant times your trig function or your variable. Other questions? Okay. So that brings me to the chart. Those of you who got stuck on what I just showed you, the derivative of what have you, the antiderivative of negative sine of x. There is a good chart on page 244. Okay? On this chart, it talks about what's the derivative of a constant? Well, it's 0. So the integral of 0 is a constant. The derivative of a number times x is just k. K times x is k. So the integral of k would be kx plus c. So plus that constant, see? Here's the constant times the function. So the derivative would be the constant times the function times the first derivative. And so on and so forth. You can actually see all the derivatives and all the integrals side by side, and these ones will have the constants over here. If you need to use this chart while you're doing your homework, feel free to use that chart. Cody?